Right, good morning and welcome to another edition of Elevenses with Kevin Williams here of Survival Skills. It's the 16th of August. It's a fairly grey and overcast day here in London, still fairly humid. What have we got for you today? Well, Suzuka, the 8-hour race has been cancelled. There's a big bike ban on some roads in nighttime in parts of Cyprus. Honda seem to be working on an electric CB125R. Andrea Dovizioso and Ducati have parted company over a pay cut. Corby police have been crushing motorcycles that they've seized, and something that's set the biking world on fire is that Stevenage Council have applied for an anti-cruise order. So we'll carry on with those stories in just a moment. But first of all, weather warning. If you are intending to head out today or over the next few days, indeed, we're in a particularly unsettled phase of weather at the moment. There are thunderstorms forecast today for virtually anywhere in the UK, apart from Scotland, where they're having a nice day. So do be careful. The thing about thunderstorms, obviously, is they can develop very quickly and flood the roads. And you can be riding along on a beautifully sunny bit of road and suddenly ride into a flooded area. Okay, so, all right. Mobility Land, the organisers of the iconic 8-hour Suzuka race in Japan, have cancelled the event. The 43rd running of Suzuka was initially postponed to November the 1st from July, but the global health crisis has forced the abandonment of the event altogether now. Over the years, the race has grown significantly in importance, and it's now a centerpiece of the FIM's World Endurance Championship. And it was intended to be the finale of the season as well. But the trouble is that tougher restrictions on entry into Japan would have left the international teams and riders unable to compete. So they have cancelled the event rather than just run it as a domestic race. Jorge Villegas, who's the president of the IMF, the International Motorcycling Federation, said, "The cancellation of the iconic race of the Suzuka 8 Hours is really very sad news, but we must accept the Japanese government's decision that takes into account the safety measures for the health of the population. In these difficult times, I want to thank all efforts made by our promoter Eurosport Events, the organizer Mobility Land, and the MFJ. All fans can be sure we'll come back in 2001 with the best race ever." So yes, hopefully we will see that bike back, or that race rather back. It's always a good one to catch up with if you do have television coverage of it. Don't forget, I forgot to mention, if you have any comments or questions or suggestions for a future show, any feedback at all, do add your comment to the comment stream and I will get back to you at the end of the live show. A couple of hellos to people who've already signed in. I can see that we've got Sue there, and also we have Nigel as well, who've said good morning. So good to see you both. Right, okay. What else has been going on in the world? Well, one bit of bad news, if you happen to live in Cyprus, is that motorcycle groups out there are outraged by what seems to be a unilateral police ban on motorcycles over 125s on some roads during overnight hours, depending on the area. It could be from 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. I should say, in the evening to 4 a.m. in the morning. A group on social media is saying that this unilateral decree to ban motorcyclists on these roads is to combat noise pollution, is depriving a large section of the population of their basic freedoms. So basically anything over 125, including quad bikes, will be excluded from these areas, but not food delivery motorcycles. But quite honestly, who rides their bike at 4 a.m? But the earlier ban's obviously a bit inconvenient, I should imagine, for a lot of people. Okay, so don't forget, you're watching Elevenses live with Kevin Williams here of Survival Skills. You can catch me on Wednesdays and Sundays when I put together some 15 minutes worth of news, views, and usually some better biking tips as well for you. what else is on the news? Well, Honda may well be working on an electric motorcycle. Now, we've been talking about electric bikes fairly regularly over the last few months since I've been doing these shows, but mostly they have either been startup manufacturers or they have been established electric motorcycle manufacturers who've been running for a number of years. It's been noticeable that the Japanese mainstream manufacturers have pretty much stayed out of the electric motorcycle market until very recently. Now, a couple of months ago, I told you about a Kawasaki which had appeared, which was based on the sort of the Ninja, the baby Ninja chassis, and basically appeared to be an electric motor with a 6-speed gearbox attached to it. Well, this particular machine is a Honda CB125R. And the details obviously are fairly sketchy at the moment. This information has come from a patent, but the electric motor appears possibly to be the one that's already in use in the Honda PCX electric scooter. So aside from the powertrain, most of the rest of the machine appears to be standard CB125R. And, that makes sense if it's an evaluation machine, but it could also be an indication that with relatively little modification, Honda are getting to the point where they are considering putting a sort of a motorcycle with an electric motor on the road. So it could come forward as a production vehicle sooner rather than later. It'll be interesting to watch what happens with both those machines from Kawasaki and Honda over the next few months. Okay, now I also mentioned that contract talks between Ducati's MotoGP superstar Andrea Dovizioso and the Italian team hit trouble over money. In fact, they broke down completely. And his management team yesterday told Ducati that they were pulling out of those negotiations altogether. And as a result, Dovizioso will be leaving the Italian MotoGP team at the end of the season. Now, it seems that Ducati have been trying to force a pay cut on the Italian rider, whilst he had apparently demanded more cash after he finished runner-up for the Italian brand 3 years on the trot. Dovizioso, he's 34. He'd won 13 races for them since joining Ducati from Honda in 2013. Ducati course sporting director Paolo Ciabatti said after the meeting ahead of the Austrian Grand Prix, which is this weekend, he said that they had realised that unfortunately they are not the conditions to continue our relationship with Dovi beyond the end of the current contract. Predictably, the rumour mill has swung into full action, and one name that's being linked with Dovi's seat is former world champion Jorge Lorenzo, who retired last year. He's signed as a Yamaha test rider in January, but there's a possibility of him making a return to Ducati, according to rumour, but Ducati have nothing to say on that. The breakdown in talks is seen as a bigger blow to Dovizioso than it is to Ducati, frankly. There are plenty of riders out there who could take the Ducati seat. And the racer has already suggested that this may lead to him taking a break from racing next year. Now, if he does, he may struggle to find his way back, as all the teams are likely to be looking at pruning their budgets as the recession bites deeper. Okay, so set your reminder. Remember that we're on at 11 o'clock on Wednesdays and Sundays. You can catch up with the show here on Facebook if you miss it live, or you can head over to my YouTube channel at Survival Skills UK. Don't forget that all important UK on the end. And you can see all the shows over there. Right, what else has been going on in the world out there? Well, I've already given you the video link, which you can have a look at. A number of motorcycles which have been seized by police in Northamptonshire for persistently being ridden in a nuisance or dangerous manner were sent to the crusher on Friday, July the 31st, and the cameras were there to film it. The local police say that nuisance riding is an issue that they are working hard to tackle. There are lots of reports from residents right across the county of vehicles like this being ridden in an antisocial manner. and the argument is that affects everybody's quality of life. And so the bikes were seized, crushed, and then publicly put on display in Queen's Square in Corby. On a related note, Stevenage Borough Council have applied to the High Court for an injunction to ban people who participate in street cruises in Stevenage as car drivers, motorcycle riders, passengers, and/or spectators. Now, this injunction would actually grant the police powers of arrest for those participating in these street cruises. And a hearing is scheduled to take place at the Luton District Registry on the 20th of August at 2 p.m. It will be a remote hearing, by the way. You'll notice that the injunction uses the term street cruises. Now, perhaps not unpredictably, the bike press has somewhat modified the story to talk about car cruises, implying that the problem isn't motorcyclists, but they're being caught up in the legislation. So not surprisingly, that there's been a fairly furious response from bike groups around the area, claiming that a ban on driving or riding in convoy could mean, as the Motorcycle News said, riding schools and charity rides would be outlawed, as well as meetups at cafes and bike shops, and that the injunction could also mean a ban on group ride-outs for motorbikes in the town. This isn't new. We've had these kind of events before. You may recall, probably 4 or 5 years ago now, that an exclusion zone was placed around the Oak Dean Cafe in Kent. Now, if you don't know the Oak Dean, it's on the A20, just where it crosses the M25, M26 junction. So it's fairly close to London. It's fairly close to sort of towns like Maidstone and Medway towns. And it's a very popular destination for bikers on summer evenings. And there's one particular evening where there's actually, sort of a bike meet. What happened, of course, was that some riders started using the bike meet to turn into a improvised stunt show. And the result was that the police took action and basically put an exclusion zone up around the cafe, saying no bikes within this exclusion zone. Riding groups saw that as heavy-handed, but at the end of the day, the cafe owners themselves had been asking riders to tone it down, and a few of those riders hadn't complied, and the result was a ban which affected a lot more riders. Going back a few more years before that, you may know about the Ace Cafe up on the North Circular Road, which isn't too far away from where I'm sitting right this moment. If you go up to the Ace Cafe, you will find a road which has a motorcycle ban on it. I inadvertently rode my motorcycle down it and thought that's an odd sign there to say no motorcycles as I rode past it. And it was only a moment later, of course, I realised where I was. It was used as a nice little link road around the back of the cafe itself, where people could do knee-down action on the roundabouts and pull wheelies and things up and down the pavement, up and down the road, whilst lots of people stood on the pavement and watched. And the result was that a lot of noise, and it just happens to back onto a hospital. So there was a fairly, sort of major intervention by the police, which again people saw as heavy-handed, but the road closure put an end to that. What are these events what are they triggered by? Well, the application itself, if you happen to go looking at it, and I did, the application gives 3 specific examples of recent street cruises which have been a problem for the council. And this includes an event with no less than 400 people attending in July 2019. And that resulted in a serious accident when 2 cars collided and then ploughed into the crowd. 18 people sustained injuries, and the incident involved the attendance of all 3 emergency services. The trigger for the injunction appears to have been an event planned on social media to take place on the 12th of July by groups calling themselves the Hearts Car Society and Static Takeover. And although they didn't advertise a meeting point, there were 2 rendezvous in Stevenage. And again, what happened was that a lot of police had to be deployed because the cruise eventually took place at Tesco's in Hatfield, and no less than 800 vehicles attended. It may all seem like harmless fun, but these sort of things do tend to get out of hand. So, I'm kind of in between the two seats here. On the one hand, I can understand why councils and police want to put some controls in place, or basically they want to have the power to have some control. On the other hand, I do feel that sometimes we can worry rather too much about the implications for this on social liberty. I honestly can't see the police rolling this out and starting to arrest a motorcycle trainer with a couple of trainees. It's not going to happen, is it? I mean, that's just scary, scary, scary mongering. Are motorcyclists going to a local bike shop going to be blocked from going there because that bike shop happens to be in the borough of Stevenage? Well, again, I very much doubt that'll happen. The inference is that if you're law-abiding, doing things that are fairly sensible, it's not going to be a problem. And I mean, if you're blocking stopping ride outs, who's going to go through a ride out through Stevenage town centre? Quite frankly, if you've been there, it's a soulless place of industrial estates and sort of grid pattern roads. It's really not the kind of place that you go to go for a ride out. You'll be out in the country enjoying the country roads. So there's a lot of hysteria in the press about things like this. I think, yes, we need to keep an eye on it. We need to make sure that the powers that the police are granted by the council aren't overused, aren't exaggerated, aren't used for the wrong purposes. But at the end of the day, if you are a reasonably law-abiding, reasonably sensible motorcyclist with a bunch of like-minded mates, I very much doubt you're going to come into conflict with the police anywhere in Stevenage or anywhere else. So, right, okay. Don't forget, if you have enjoyed the show, our 15 minutes are up. You can head over to my Ko-fi page, where you will find lots of better riding articles. You'll also find all the old Elevenses videos over there, which you can access. £3 grants you 30 days access to the better riding articles, and if you subscribe on a regular basis, you'll get access to even more information over there. Okay, thank you very much again for watching. I'll be back on Wednesday with some more news, views, and hopefully some better biking tips as well. So thank you indeed, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.